Kept on, golly.
Did you benefit from it?
I did, just seeing the dynamics of the crazy family.
Okay.
Oh,
And,
my Lord.
okay, so let's go back to that. But what about you?
Yeah, I think I benefited from it.
Okay, for the family group conference, and in those will be lawyers, family, the parents, caseworker, etc. Quite a few people and a facilitator. And what I get out of it, even though there's no action items or anything, what I get out of it is just what you said, Lord. You hear everybody talk about it, and and it really is helpful to hear everybody talk about it when others are listening. I mean, you may have a parent that's very controversial, etc., and everybody's sitting there talking about it. Okay, and a CFE is, help me make sure I don't say this wrong. CFE is where we get together and talk about the case between the department, CASA, etc., and collaborate amongst ourselves there. And again, it's where you can hear the same thing. It goes back to verification. Okay, you can sometimes verify something right then and there. So if you get invited to a CFE, Collaborative Family Engagement phone call these days, not most of them are in person, but or a family group conference, please make sure you attend. And you may sit there and say, what was that? There was no actions, there was no, but yet you will learn about the people in the case, and you may find out something sometime. Yes, ma'am.
Usually it's the plan is presented, the plan,
Service plan?
the service plan's presented, and everybody acknowledges where they are on the service plan with their attorney or, I mean, through their attorney or whatever the situation is. And
Right.
so it's easier to see the whole picture.
Yes, ma'am.
And if this might work.
And,
The plan might.
and did that parent go to the court requested drug test? What were the results, etc., which is sometimes hard to find out about it. So
Well, and I was going to say, and sometimes, like in one of my cases, the very first, it started, the FGC turned into a CFE because we changed the model over time. But the first one we thought this case is doomed. It's it's going to be a relative adoption. They're not going to be reunified, and now we're looking at a monitored return. So now we've seen the change in the parents, and it's been really exciting to see that. But when you attend them, you see it for yourself, and you can really see the difference. Hopefully, that's always the goal, that there will be a difference and things will be resolved.
and the ones I've gone to, the facilitators have absolutely wanted our input.
Yes.
They will sit there and even not just your initial report in the call or if you're at the meeting, but a topic comes up, like you were saying, and then they'll even say, CASA, please provide your input on that topic. So we're very important in those conferences, so don't take those lightly, please. Any other comment or questions on that?
The only thing we found out in one of those conferences in Harris County was the mother kept saying she didn't know where the father was, she couldn't get in contact with him, and they pulled up Facebook while she's sitting there.
Yeah, my new case, the dad's in Hawaii, and we need a home assessment, and I keep volunteering, but anyway. Okay, go back one, I'm sorry, Sharon. Again, note that was CASA and DFPS interactions. Can you think of anything else that you've encountered that you had to do with the department?
Supervise visitations when they're too busy.
I'm sorry?
Supervise the visitations when they're too busy.
Supervised visitations, excellent. I've done it so many times. Especially when, say, there's a grandparent that has rights to see the children and CPS doesn't want to do that. I've done that many times. Excellent point. Supervised visitations. I've done it many times down at Conroe. So, very good point, Lois. Anybody else? Okay.
I have a question on the supervised visitations.
Pardon me?
Where do they take place?
Supervised visitation, I've done them mostly at the CPS office where you're
Okay.
behind the glass,
Okay.
you know,
Oh,
but I've
yeah,
also
I'm
done
sorry.
it at a church parlor, a parlor for Christmas Eve and stuff like that, just wherever everybody agrees that that's because CPS was closed on Christmas Eve, so I said I would let mom and dad have Christmas with them. So everybody had to agree that we could do it at this one location, so.
But CPS is responsible for transporting the children to that third-party location because you cannot, as you know, but, and they have, I'm not sure what the right technicians, assistants, or whatever, and I think they're third-party agency they hire to run, go get kids, okay? So, even if the caseworker's not gonna be at the visitation, he or she must arrange for that child to be brought to wherever the location is. That is their responsibility. Okay. Everybody know what an RTC, Residential Treatment Center, is? How many have been there?
I'd like to go.
Okay, so you know it's unfortunately not a particularly fun place, but as you also know, it's basically a rehab, okay? And they do have therapy there, and it can be hit or miss, no argument, but most RTCs also have caseworkers, and one will be assigned to your child. Okay, and you need to establish a rapport with that caseworker because you're probably going to get more out of that caseworker. And if you want to talk to the child, then that caseworker is going to be your link because most RTCs, if you just call the general number and so you get somebody, you're not going to be connected with your child. So, and especially under these COVID routines, having that caseworker help you communicate with the child is extremely important. I've got 2 RTCs right now, neither one will let CASA in due to the COVID requirements. So unfortunately, no face-to-face. So, and these folks, as you know, your child may be there 2 or 3 days. They could be there, long term. Again, I've got a 12-year-old in one, and she's again very defiant, very disruptive, and one
Like
RTC.
a dorm setting?
Pardon me?
Is it a dorm setting or how is it?
Oh, it depends.
They're all different.
Yeah, they differ. I've been to one that had big common area and the rooms kind of circled it. And then I had another one that went in, and again, downstairs was more therapy, open, and then the rooms were upstairs, etc.
Yeah.
So it just depends. Okay, but.
You want me to hand these out?
Yeah,
You have
you can
examples.
go ahead. I've got a couple, Gulf Winds down in Bay City and Hearts with Hope in Spring, just a couple of examples of this. Now, one thing you need to keep up with your caseworker is discharge procedures, okay? And the reason I say that, if the child is too disruptive and they're not able to control he or she, they will discharge them. Okay, and then the department has X amount of time to find a new placement. And the department does have an arrangement. They can get a placement extension if they can't find someplace else to take this child. Because if you're in an RTC, the child probably has some type of issue, okay, as you know. So you need to make sure you understand the discharge procedures and where we are with that child with regard to discharge, okay? So very important. Anything else on RTCs?
Did you know your child can refuse to go to one?
No, I didn't. That's interesting because the child. well, the child I have is
They
12,
just run.
and she said
Oh,
no.
right. Yeah, they can't really refuse, but they can run.
Or just stay
Oh,
where
yeah,
they are.
absolutely, they can.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that, I'll tell you a little story. When Sharon and Janet and I were doing these slides, we said, well, let's do some pros and cons on RTCs. We couldn't come up with any pros, so.
Well, some of them specialized, the one that I was introduced to was specialized in sex trafficking victims.
Oh,
So the
mercy.
therapy that they would get for that versus, and the training and educate, I mean, I get, but it's a lockdown and
It is, and
that,
that's,
that goes against.
the ones I've been to, the kiddos cannot just walk in and out of.
They're locked in.
They're locked
Yeah.
in.
Then they take them to school.
No, yeah, that or there's
There's
one
one
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bus them together, well, the one that I went and visited, they bus them over to the school and then they bus them back. In the interim, then they're locked up.
Some of them will have charter online schools and in the placement as well.
Oh, really?
They're really just, everyone is really different.
What's the closest one that we have?
The closest,
On the feeder.
Conroe, there's one, right?
Yeah, well, and that one I handed out that's in Spring, there's one in Wallace. I mean, actually, I tried to get a listing for all RTCs in Texas, and I couldn't get one to come up, so.
Yeah, the one I went to was in Texarkana.
And all of a sudden, the exit.
Did you know that the CPS office in Conroe has overnight stays?
Yes, they do. Absolutely, absolutely. I sure do. Okay, I'm going to cover these pretty quickly. Therapeutic hospitals, obviously, this is dealing more with, again, behavior issues, mental issues, etc. They're,
Oh, I'm sorry. Here.
that's all right.
Okay.
These are not good places. They can only have 2 sets of clothes, no belts, no shoelaces, no nothing. And currently, you cannot visit these places. You can take things to the child, which is a process in of itself. But my little 13-year-old that's now adopted, he was sent to therapeutic hospitals 3 times, one time for almost 3 weeks because of his behavior. So they do have therapy there, etc., but it's not a fun place. So hope nobody has to go to one of those.
Can I jump in real quick, Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to add one small comment that came from Texas CASA about, like, group homes, RTCs, and therapeutic hospitals and things like that. That right now there are some in Texas that are allowing advocates to visit their children, even with the COVID restrictions. And I think we'll probably put this out another way as well, but I want to encourage you to have your own COVID screening questions when you call these places. There have been a few instances in the state where an RTC has said, sure, come visit your kids. And there was a staff member in that RTC that had tested positive for COVID, and they didn't inform the volunteer of that. And so they just left their doors open and said, sure, come on in, no problem, and they weren't self-quarantining. So just kind of a side note related to if you are visiting children in these settings, I encourage that in all the settings to be asking caregivers, are y'all symptomatic? Has anyone tested positive in the last 2 weeks? Things like that, but especially in these group settings.
Okay. And it's funny, I got a list of psychiatric hospitals to come up, but I couldn't get
Except for your
therapeutics.
families.
So psychiatric hospitals really are just a step of intensity above therapeutic. And some facilities will actually probably cross over, like the one I gave you that's front and back intra-care behavior center. They really do cross over between therapeutic and psychiatric. So you need to, if you get a child that is moved to one of these hospitals, please make sure you understand what are they doing for them, what is their therapy, why is he or she there, you'll know that anyway, but what are they doing, because it's very important. But if they're in a true psychiatric hospital, that is a little bit more intense for sure. So you need to be sure you understand the differences, obviously, at an RTC, because an RTC may very well send your child to a therapeutic or psychiatric hospital, or a caregiver. A caregiver absolutely has the right to send a child to a therapeutic or psychiatric hospital with the department's knowledge, of course, etc. Because a caregiver is the one that moved my boy, 13-year-old boy, well, he wasn't 13 at the time, but anyway, the caregiver took him to the hospital, not to an RTC. So an RTC doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle. Okay?
One thing to follow up too, if your children get placed, some of these are just short term, but I had one that lasted a lot longer than we anticipated because they couldn't find another placement. So they may get there, you've got to follow the discharge plans. Yep. And follow up to be sure that, they may be necessary today, but it may not be necessary for 6 months. So it's important to follow with the caseworker what they're doing to find alternative placement, because as you can understand, it's more difficult to place kids with behavior problems when they're coming out of psychiatric hospitals or therapeutic hospitals, even RTCs.
Yeah, I keep mentioning the little young lady that I've got right now, and at court just a couple of weeks ago, her behavior was discussed with the judge, and she's cutting, she's threatening, etc. And the judge literally told the department, you find a suitable placement to address her needs, and if you can't find it in Texas, find it somewhere else. So, she was, the judge was very definitive with the department, do something for this child. So, anyway, I'm gonna let you take over. Any questions on all those hospitals? All right, I'll let you take over.
Okay, so what we've done is I've put together some key points kind of to round this all out. Some best practices and strategies that we came up with. Like I said, you may come up with more, you may have some different ideas, but as we go through them, it's important that you have your boundaries, that there are boundaries established in order for your own self-preservation. Christine Huber did a presentation a few weeks ago about COVID and how that's affected us and what we're trying to do and how we're supposed to benefit our the kids that we serve. Of avoiding dependency, again, be alert to the fact that the kids can become independent, the caregivers can become dependent, and what are you doing to kind of bridge those boundaries so that at the end of the day they have what they need and they know how to find it. Stay in close contact with the caseworker. If not, you'll get lost in the shuffle because they're not going to call you, so you call them. Stay close to the attorney ad litem. Their client is the child. So if at any point you want to make a move about something for the child, it's important that you have legal representation for that child. So they can go in, they can file motions, they can do all of those things. So it's important that you stay in close contact with them. Generally what I like to do is just send them an email when I've seen the kids or if I see an issue or something come up so that you're in close contact. Again, know the courtroom, know what the rules are. Know what you need to know to make sure you don't tick off the judge. Keep learning. We see new things every day. We experience new things every day. I was a social worker for 20 years. Then I went to law school and I practiced law, did it independent, worked for the court. I did behavior modification with adults, and I thought I had seen everything. I did a evaluation on a kid in the court and interviewed the father who was up on criminal charges for sexually abusing his child. Came in, we sat down, he said, I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty. She was willing and I'm not guilty. But you want to know who is guilty? He said, my brother. He had sexually assaulted his niece. Isn't that disgusting? And I thought, everybody's got boundaries. You know, everybody's got them. So when you're working with people, understand that you may get shocked, but that's their lifestyle, that's what they know, and that's their boundary limits. So,
And on the keep learning, and remember your 12 hours a year training. And these folks do a great job putting things out there. Getting that 12 hours is not hard under normal circumstances until you have to cancel a lot of things. But anyway.
Even then,
again,
it's
go
not
ahead, I'm
hard.
sorry.
I said, even then, it's not hard.
Yeah, right. Never leave a hearing with the thought, I didn't give that evidence to the court. We've talked about a lot about evidence tonight. Prior to your trial review, no dates and times. Nothing drives me crazier than a caseworker who's on the stand testifying, and they'll say, when was the child picked up? I don't know. When did this happen? I don't know. Even if you have to take a piece of paper and write dates down for yourself, make sure you know what those dates and times are. They can be really vital when somebody wants to contest a decision, because they're going to say something was supposed to happen on this date, it did not happen, and they're going to point the finger at somebody. So it's important to know those dates. When I'm cross-examined, when you're being cross-examined, it's frustrating. It is. You need to think. You don't have to respond fast, and only answer the questions. Be clear on whether your testimony will be subject to hearsay rules. That goes back to what I was talking about before, where I just spiel on a narrative. Yeah.
Yep, so this organization works in 3 counties?
Yes.
And how many judges in each county do you guys have?
There is a judge in Walker County, and then 1 judge serves Trinity and San Jacinto. Judge Jones. But she, I understand, is leaving.
January 1st, new one.
She's on her way out.
So some of the judges will say that's hearsay, and some of the judges will say
Yeah.
that's well within. what
Yeah, I was in
process.
Judge Jones's court when the prosecutor said, that's hearsay, and she said, okay.
She's the one that told me it was a hearsay when I repeated something.
In Walker County, you can just do your narrative. You start talking and telling your story. So you have to know which is which. Know some of the resources that are available. Sometimes you get surprised in the courtroom. Somebody will say, well, we have to do this, or we have to move this kid because we don't have this, or we don't have that, or whatever. Anticipate those kind of things. Know what the resources are for your particular case, so that you can maybe jump up and say, wait, you know, we've got this, we've got that. Verify the facts. My big thing is, if you can help and resource the caregiver, you really have advocated for the child. My case in Harris County, where we went and got apartments, we went to the Social Security office, we went and did all of those things, and if you can say that you have provided those kind of resources and that kind of information for those people, you've helped those kids. So I consider that advocating for the kids just as well. And then finally, show respect to everyone. I made it a policy in my courtroom that I did domestic violence civil protection orders for a year, and that's all I did for a whole year. Anybody who came into my courtroom was treated with the same respect. I don't care if they were accused of a criminal offense or whatever. I gave them the same respect, the same opportunity to speak as anybody else in the courtroom. And in my estimation, that's being non-judgmental and doing what our position on the bench is supposed to do. Give everybody their opportunity.
Before you go to your next slide, go back to our support system. I hope all of you have seen this form. This is a tool that they give you that helps you in Optima with regard to, gee, have I seen and done everything legal, educational, medical, in January, etc. And if you do this and get it recorded, you'll avoid those little emails you get. No, seriously, this is an extremely helpful tool. I kind of keep it pretty close and marked down, etc. So, I would encourage you to use it and transfer the information over to Optima.
Okay, anything on best practices, anything anybody wants to add on strategies they've used, any advice anybody can give? Nothing new? So I'm going to take about 5 minutes
Oh, wait, sorry about that.
and talk about Hopes Bridge. As you all know, I became involved with Hopes Bridge back, it's been almost a year now. Quite by accident. One of my big issues when I came to Walker County and to CASA was resources and having resources. And the history of Hopes Bridge is that the woman who started Hopes Bridge in Montgomery County started it because she had 2 nephews that went into care when she was quite young. She and her husband took those 2 in, could not get resources, could not access any assistance whatsoever, and she had to turn the kids back over to CPS. A few years later, the kids had since gone home and they came back into care again. She and her husband decided at that point that they couldn't allow the kids to remain in CPS. So they went to CPS and said, we want to take the kids back. Well, they got blackballed and they wouldn't give the kids back to them. So they hired an attorney, and the story is now that this family has 6 children, 2 adopted nephews, and they have an adopted 7-year-old who's autistic. She is dynamite for resources. She went back to school, got her education, and started Hopes Bridge because she's lived through it. She knows what it's like to have kids in the system and not be able to provide resources. So recently they moved. I think one of the presentations I gave that we were talking about, they had to move, and they moved into 3,300 square feet in Montgomery County, which is huge. We don't have near that much, but we do have, we have a lot. We actually are given the top floor of the care center and also a whole big basement area. So if I can get this to pull up, we do deliver, by the way. I don't know if I can, doesn't seem to want to. So anyway, I went and took some pictures so that you would know what is there. During the COVID outbreak, there were a lot of people that still needed diapers. We have regular visitors up for diapers and wipes. And so what I would do is I'd load them up and drop them off on porches so that people didn't have to do without during a time when financially they really needed them. We have baby furniture and supplies. We have, about 6 months ago, there was a company in Walker County that did a luggage hunt. And they went out, and we have luggage stored so that nobody has to transfer anywhere in a garbage bag. So if you have kids that need luggage, that need to be moved or whatever, we've got them available. We've got furniture, we've got shoes. We had a foster parent come down, and for the wood alone, with no cost, he built us shoe racks for the kids. He built in all of the closets so that we have storage space that we can use for every inch of space that we've got up there. Furniture, in the last 3 months, we've outfitted 3 families that came out of care, and the kids were going home with the parents. They had nothing. Julie has a contract with Walmart in Conroe, and every Friday she picks up any boxes that have been opened or anything. We have come up with dishes and microwaves and toaster ovens and furniture, beds, dressers, end tables, couches. I went into a home a few weeks ago. The woman had 3 little kids. They didn't have a couch and they didn't have a bed. So we brought beds and couches. So I'm working pretty close with a few of the CPS caseworkers who know that we're available now, and people don't have to go all the way to Montgomery. If you get in a house where there are needs, just call me. We've got things, if I don't have them, I call Julie. One day we needed a refrigerator. She went out to a home to pick up some stuff. We got an old refrigerator. She took it home, cleaned it up. The next day it was delivered. So she has many, many contacts, and we've got many resources that we've been able to provide. So, and then we've got people that have come to volunteer, which is great. And I really appreciate the people. We are there Wednesday nights from 5 to 8, Friday mornings 9 to 12, and if I get volunteers, I'll do Saturday mornings 9 to 12. We have greatly expanded what we started with a year ago. So,
What are the duties of your volunteers?
sorting clothes, sorting donations. We get a lot of toys, we get a lot of clothes. We have to sort them by size. What we do is, you can see here, we put them all in bins, so we have sizes. So the goal is, when we started, it was they would call me and I would fill the orders for clothing. Now what we like to do is have the people come and pick out their own, because when they're there, we find that they need more than what they thought they needed. And so they end up taking a lot of equipment, baby equipment, and those kind of things that they didn't even think about needing or asking for. So, yes, ma'am.
Sharon, were you going to mention about the washing clothes?
Oh, yeah, we're going to start a team of people. What I usually do is when I get a request for clothing, I make sure that they're all laundered. So I've been taking them home, laundering them and put them in a suitcase, folding them all so that the kids don't look like just a pile of stuff that's coming in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, anybody can volunteer if you want to, I'm going to put a team of people together that will pick up a bag of laundry, take it home, wash it, fold it, bring it back. My husband says that I am the best laundry service that there is on our street. So,
Cheapest too.
any other questions? It's turned out to be a wonderful project. It's very rewarding when we can get, and we can prevent kids from going into care. That's the thing. If they've got what they need at the home, it's, you know, beds and dressers and those kind of things. And CPS, number one, doesn't provide dressers of any kind. And so, my poor husband, I go over to Good Shepherd, and for $10 you can pick up an old beat up dresser. I drag it home and he refinishes it, and then we deliver it. So, we're getting pretty resourceful, but I'll tell you, Julie over in Montgomery, she's got a handle on it, let me tell you. And she shows up with her 9 kids, and they all haul things. They are up and down those steps, you know, we go up and down, and they are loading up and putting couches in houses, and they're amazing. They are an amazing family, so, been really good.
Where is it? Is it at the care center?
It's at the care center, but you have to go around to the back, and we have upstairs in the back. So anybody's welcome to come and see what we've got. You're welcome to come and shop for your families. You're welcome to come and help. Yes, sir.
Where is this?
At the care center on 15th Street, 1215 15th Street.
Like behind
The old funeral
Luigi's.
home's right.
The old funeral home.
Behind Luigi's.
If you lived here a while.
Luigi's on
This
St.
house.
Louis.
Yeah.
It used to be a cemetery.
Oh, I thought that was
funeral
a
home.
woman's center. I thought
It
that
is.
was
It's across
It is
a woman's
downstairs.
shelter.
That's across the street.
Safe house.
Okay,
It's across
gotcha.
from Safe House.
Oh, yeah, I've been in there before.
So you go behind it, and there's some stairs, you gotta kind of go in there with
Yeah.
it.
Shopping.
Stairs,
I'm
they're
a
like
shopper.
straight up and down.
Yeah.
Almost a
I know
ladder.
myself.
Don't wear
It's a
heels.
ladder. And you can
Okay.
see through
Yeah.
them and
Gotcha.
the floor
Yeah,
doesn't
don't-
look real
We've got,
Don't wear high
stable.
heels to go up the
We've
stairs.
got good connections with Steakhouse, and when they get it next